Next item, presentation of life-saving award to Sergeant Joshua Greer and Officer Matthew Buckner, and our chief, Dykes, is going to make this presentation.
I am, and my guys are still out in the patrol room. Will you give me just one moment? Thanks, sir. I don't know, because we're extending our desktop. There we go. That back around. Yep, that's why, because every time I close the lid, it wants to extend your desktop to that. So, let's just do it the easy way for right now. Then we'll plug that back in later.
See what the chief
That's a
says.
good way to do
All
it.
right.
Steve, where would you like us?
Want your front and center.
All right.
Show off the smiling faces. And everybody can tell you're smiling. So, all right. So tonight we're here to recognize a couple of officers for their actions. I always enjoy when we can do things like this, where we can show that our officers go above and beyond what's really expected of them. This is these two are an example of what we expect from our officers, and I couldn't be more proud. So, truthfully, this incident happened back in August, and I had meant to get this onto the August agenda. We'd had some logistical issues, so a little delayed in getting this award out, but here we are. So I'm going to read this letter, and actually a lot of the information that is in this tonight is actually the letter by Sergeant Miller recommending these two for the award. And so let me read this. It says, on August 4th, 2021, let me take this off. At approximately 9:32 p.m., the Buncombe County Sheriff's Office received a report of a stabbing that took place at 12 Julep Drive in Alexander. Updated information stated that the male victim was placed in a vehicle and was being driven to the hospital with a stab wound to his neck. Sergeant Joshua Greer and Officer Matthew Buckner were able to locate the vehicle and to get it to stop at the intersection of Old Marshall Highway and Weaverville Road. Upon inspection of the wound, it was apparent the victim was losing a large amount of blood. At that point, Officer Buckner grabbed his personal tactical first aid kit and provided wound dressing to Sergeant Greer. Sergeant Greer then applied the dressing to the injury, packing the stab wound with gauze and applying pressure to control bleeding until EMS could arrive on scene. During a conversation with Buncombe County Deputy Michael Fisher, Woodfin Police Sergeant Matt Miller was informed that Deputy Fisher spoke with the doctor in the emergency room who was caring for that victim. According to Deputy Fisher, the doctor said that if it was not for the actions of the Woodfin Police Department, the victim would have not made it to the hospital alive. Sergeant Greer and Officer Buckner took extraordinary steps to save the life of a human being. Thanks to their advanced training in tactical emergency casualty care, these officers were able to provide a level of care well above and beyond the minimum standards required for law enforcement certification. Their ability to remain composed and keep the victim calm showcases the professionalism we strive to elicit from each of our officers. I'm extremely proud to present the Woodfin Police Department Life Saving Award and pin to Sergeant Joshua Greer and Officer Matthew Buckner. Also, let me present. And then Officer Buckner. Congratulations. And while I have Officer Buckner, up here. For just one moment. I printed this out before I came up to show you that our guys, they keep on top of this. This is from an incident that happened on September 17th, where Officer Buckner responded to an overdose call right here in the parking lot of the Woodfin Town Hall. He arrived and contacted an individual who was unresponsive inside the vehicle, administered sternum rubs with no response, and then ended up giving 1 dose of naloxone, also known as Narcan. And then he continued with the sternum rubs until the subject was responsive. EMS arrived on scene, checked the subject out, who eventually refused to be transported. Again, our officers go above and beyond. A lot of folks would have just waited for EMS to show up because, hey, we're not medical personnel. Doesn't matter. We're here to save people. We're here looking out for our community. The folks that drive through, the folks that live here, they're all part of our community, and these officers do an exceptional job of keeping everyone safe. So again, Officer Buckner, job well done. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank each one of you.
Thank you, appreciate you.
Okay, next item, a resolution appointing town administrator as deputy finance officer.
This is a housekeeping item. When we hired Ms. Powers as our finance director, she was appointed finance officer, which is a statutory role, which empowers her to do certain things. In her absence, there are a few things that need to be taken care of while she's gone. And she happens to be on vacation, and we happen to have no one who's able to sign off on contracts if there is a budget for contracts. Also sign checks, so 2 signatures required. One of those has to be finance officer or deputy finance officer. So that's what this is doing here tonight. This is putting the deputy finance officer designation with the town administrator on the individual with the role. So that's what this action tonight will do, if you approve it.
Any questions for Eric regarding this? That's just a requirement.
Yeah. I make the motion to accept him as deputy finance officer.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, congratulations, Mr. Deputy Finance Director.
I know he's
Okay,
excited.
next item, Town of Woodfin 2021 Comprehensive Plan. Got any comments you want to make, Adrian, before it's got presenter Eisenhower?
Should we do the public hearing first?
Yeah, I didn't know if you had anything to say before we start the hearing or not.
I'll go afterwards.
Okay, this will be for a public hearing regarding a comprehensive plan. And at this time, I will open the meeting for a public hearing. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak?
I guess I'll go first, since I asked the question early on.
Okay, if you come up and give us your name, and you have 3 minutes.
Sure. Start the clock. My name's Nathan Miller. I live in Woodfin at 46 Jonestown Road. I was hoping that there'd be a bit of a presentation about what you are considering tonight. I was unable to be at the planning and zoning meeting, I believe, which was last week. I made some comments at a previous meeting as they moved further down the road to do additional research and try to make an informed decision before making a recommendation to this board. I've come here tonight to let you know that there are a lot of people that are like me in this neighborhood, in the town, that want to be involved and want to be in the know, especially regarding this comprehensive plan. They're watching development happen in and around Woodfin and really have a difficult time making heads or tails of what the plan might be. I was here probably just more than a year ago when they were discussing a large development going in on Reed Street. We were told there was a plan then, and I understand that the assumption was that there was a plan. But again, we were trying to figure out how something that large fit into that plan, which would have been such a huge impact on a small established neighborhood. And I feel like we're back here again. But back to the people that are like me in this neighborhood. There are a lot of people that would like to be involved and be informed. It's difficult to follow the website. I tried to check in on that last meeting to read minutes and find out what was discussed. I looked at a presentation that has an outline to adopt one option but not the other. I spend time on my friends' front porches, and as they pass by, trying to fill them in on what I've heard at meetings and what I've learned. So as you move forward and consider this plan and work on this plan, I hope it's more than a survey. I hope it's more than one spot on the website, one email. I hope there is time to schedule meetings that people can come to. The people that I'm talking to have young kids. They work split shifts. Mom's working days, dad's working nights. And when they're not working, they're taking care of kids. They would really love to be involved. They would really love to be informed. And I hope you take your time when considering this plan and getting input from the community, that you give them that opportunity. Thank you very much.
Anyone else have any comments? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Galen Wilcox. I live at 63 Hornot Circle in Asheville, so I am a neighbor. I would like to, while we're just thinking about the comprehensive plan, bring up a basic unfairness and that leads to the appearance of impropriety, which is we neighbors found out on December 16th that we had 2 weeks that there was a development proposed for our backyards. And we had 2 weeks to put together, over Christmas holiday, during a pandemic, to put together a team to answer, a lawyer and a team to answer each of the individual questions that were going to be brought up at the next board 2 weeks later. Now, come to find out later that the Holdsworth, the developer, had spent some 18 months and bragging about he had an office in Woodfin Town Hall for 18 months, personally selling you people, and we get 2 weeks to respond? So that's a basic unfairness and leads to the appearance of impropriety. Number one, what does he need to be here in person for? What does he need face-to-face time for? And we get 2 weeks. So let's fix that while we're fixing
So
it.
I will say something. I have never met this man, so don't.
All I know is what I've heard,
What you heard's wrong.
which is what he told a reporter. He said that he had an office in Woodfin Town Hall.
I'm just
So have any
telling
of
you,
you,
I
so
haven't met
if you're
him.
answering, have any of you all met him personally, face-to-face, during this time?
Yes.
Anybody? So 2 people nodding. Anybody else?
We're the only two that have offices here at Town Hall.
Pardon me?
The mayor and I are the only two people that have offices at Town Hall.
Okay.
I mean, the planning director, staff.
And staff, right.
you know,
So what does he need personal face-to-face time with you all for?
I'm not going to get into that. There's a public building.
Well, that's the appearance of impropriety.
Thank you, sir. I regret speaking.
So you can fix that. Thank you. An ethics clause in the comprehensive plan?
You're out of order, sir. Next, we have anyone else that wishes to speak? Okay, hearing none, I'll close this public hearing at 7:52 p.m. Adrian, do you have any comments you want to make?
I just wanted to give a quick presentation on the comprehensive plan, what a comprehensive plan is, and why we're talking about one tonight. So just quickly, what is a comprehensive plan? It is a guide for discussions and decisions. It does set goals for present and future social, physical, and economic development. It does provide objectives for achieving goals, but it is not a binding decision document. 160D 501, the new land use legislation, states that municipalities have to have a plan in order to apply and adopt zoning regulation. That is effective by July 1st, 2022. So the statute also provides potential areas that can be addressed in that plan, topics to include like transportation, recreation, land use, but it also states that the plan is an advisory document. So tonight, we're starting with the end in mind, so we're looking at that July 1st, 2022 date for compliance. So we have to have that in place to apply and adopt zoning regulation. Staff was aware of that, and our main objective is and continues to be to create a plan, a new 10-year plan through a thorough and inclusive process. So we started working on options for that in July. So right now we have the 2008 plan, and it has served as a guiding document, and it has been used and referenced in discussions about zoning decisions, but it's not formally adopted. So tonight in front of you is what we refer to as a 2021 plan. So this is the 2008 plan with outdated or redundant information removed. There was a reference to the UNCA craft campus, things like that have been taken out of this plan. But the bulk of it is the same. So we're calling it the 2021 plan. And if we can get that adopted tonight, that'll give us the bridge between now and 2022 to get a new plan in place. If we don't get the 2021 plan adopted, then we're up against that July 1st, 2022 deadline, which is going to condense the process for the new plan considerably. So what's the plan for the 2022 plan? As I said, we've been working on that since July. Staff plans to take the lead and guide that process, but we have been in discussions with JMT Engineering and Linda Giltz, who will serve as an extension to staff in the process. I met with them last week, and our plan is to start in October. We have 3 goals that we're trying to accomplish by the end of October. One is to identify a steering committee and key stakeholders. The steering committee will be representatives from the Board of Commissioners, the Planning Board, and then other representatives from different facets of the community. We're looking to have about 8 to 10 members on that steering committee. So we'll start identifying who those people might be. We also want to develop an extensive public engagement plan that will last throughout the process so that we can try to reach as many people as we can from all different areas of the community. And then we're going to look at existing adopted plans and other conditions in town and what we have now to set guiding principles for creation of that document. So this is the tentative timeline for development of the plan. As you can see, we're looking to complete that plan by August. But again, if we can adopt the 2021 plan, we could even take longer than that if we needed to make sure it's a solid, thorough plan. I know this is small print, so if you're interested in what it says, I'm glad to share that outside of this. So what I wanted to do now is go through the 2021 plan that you have in front of you and just go over the goals that are listed in that plan. There's 7 different goal areas: land use, transportation, economic development, education, parks and greenways, environmental resource, and housing. The Planning and Zoning Board of Adjustment reviewed this last week and voted to recommend approval. We added it back. We added it back.
Yeah, just a moment.
In the planning.
Okay, well, they were given an original version. Original version without the.
This plan they've got includes the planning board recommendations. I don't have the original plan.
Okay. Do you have the changes over?
No.
I think you ought to. Here.
They're here.
Okay, all right, so that,
See, housing is still included.
it was added in, it was added
Never taken out from the initial from the staff. And so- Logical to me.
It's just the way it
Because,
is.
because we're denoting which ones are the amendments,
Like full.
which includes
They
the
got
entire
this
housing.
written, they got
But she
this.
said that this one incorporated those changes into it, is that right? That's not.
We can get that right.
I need more discussion than just this, if we're making, reaching, because I think you're on the right track.
You say Jeannie Langford told you.
Huh?
Did you say Jeannie Langford told
The
you?
planning board recommended.
Is that who
Yeah,
you
yeah,
said?
that's what I was looking for. The hall before she met.
What the planning board recommended.
Those are-
That's what your husband told me that
That's
I
what
was
this
referred to.
accomplishes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, but this, with those incorporated, is
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, he told me he was going in the next day, and then after I saw Jean, and she,
Recommendations are separate from.
95% scared.
it's getting close, ain't it?
He did fine. Just,
Correctness.
Yeah, and so now the original comes in, and you look at these recommendations as they don't incorporate them. Only this board incorporates those. Those are just recommendations.
So it's
So
not
they're
enough to say.
denoted, they're denoted.
They're noted here, but the form that she's presented to them of the original form without those in there. This is what they got. Just a form
What they
without
got
these
for tonight
changes.
is this document that has all these changes in it.
You didn't keep a version without the changes.
Yeah, but that's what they have tonight.
We need to give them another copy tonight. And say, here are two original versions. One that was presented.
I don't see how they're not attaching that.
Yes. This plan that she's
Isn't it good, I guess?
has these changes in it, right?
Mine was better off when they got it.
We need to have here, and then say, and this is what
But if
we
we,
recommend.
but they're not gonna have time to review them. I mean, they got that,
They were given this, right?
they were given this and they were given the original one before this.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. They've already had a chance to review the original. They've reviewed one with the changes. I just need to draw that distinction.
Well, that's fine, we can do that without printing them, because they've already received both.
But they need to, I think they need to see the original one without the
I
incorporated.
think we're gonna proceed the way we've decided to do it.
Since there's the positive.
Signing and everything is giving the opposition
All the information that dropped off.
time.
Got it back.
So it's saying,
Stop you, Mom, it's something you could dig into, so, no problem. You're welcome.
actual receipt of that is unchanged.
Joe, you got back just in time for the Greek Festival.
Address it right now?
I would, don't
Hey.
suspenders.
Unfortunately, it's going to see.
Okay, so just to clarify, you all received a copy of the plan that included the appendices of the adopted plans we already had on file about a month ago. And so this plan tonight includes the amendments the planning board is recommending. So it's not the same, exactly the same. Is that?
And we're going to talk about the amendments, right?
And I'm gonna go over what is in the plan that is presented with the amendments the planning board has recommended. So I'm just going over the goals of each section of the plan, and then we can talk about the rest of it. So the land use goals, there's 5 goals: to promote infill development as both a land use priority and an economic development strategy, to improve overall quality of both existing and new development with an emphasis on infrastructure reality and future needs, to continue to effectively use annexation for growth management and tax base enhancement as long as the property to be annexed meets Woodfin environmental standards, including stormwater runoff, and meets the requirements of Buncombe County Steep Slope Ordinance, or Woodfin's once adopted, encourage the preservation of Woodfin's historic heritage, and improve intergovernmental coordination on land use issues. Transportation goals, there's 4 goals: extend the transit system's capability to serve the town, provide pedestrian paths throughout town, provide options for bicycle transportation throughout the town, and recognize that good transportation is essential to Woodfin's economic development. 3 economic development goals, including increase the number of businesses within Woodfin, encourage businesses and industries to adopt sustainability goals, and increase the total assessed value of property within Woodfin. 3 education goals, reduce the number of students in the town of Woodfin who do not graduate from high school by first gathering reliable and appropriate statistical data in this area. Ensure that Woodfin residents use their high-quality educations to obtain well-paying jobs, and ensure that the public schools serving Woodfin are at or under capacity. Parks and greenways, 3 goals: create a linked system of parks, open spaces, neighborhoods, and commercial districts via greenways. Expand and program Woodfin's park system to meet the needs of its growing population, and schedule civic, social events that encourage town residents and visitors to enjoy the parks, greenways, and other amenities of the town. Environmental resource goals, 3 goals: preserve and enhance Woodfin's open space, natural environment, and community character. Recognize that environmental protection is an economic development strategy, and connect Woodfin's green infrastructure, i.e. wildlife habitats, wildlife corridors, greenways, and open space with the region's green infrastructure. And finally, housing goals, 4 goals: increase the supply of affordable owner-occupied housing to meet the needs of prospective residents with lower income levels. Provide a range of housing types and prices to meet the needs of current and future town residents. Maximize the number of energy-efficient buildings within Woodfin, and ensure that Woodfin's business stock is at a high-quality level. I should point out, too, that in your packet you received a written recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Board, which lays out exactly what their changes that they recommend are. And that's all I have.
Any questions for Adrian? Okay, thank you, Adrian. Okay,
If I could,
okay.
I would like to address the matter as well, if I could, Your Honor.
Go ahead and give everybody your name.
I will. I am Sam Craig. I am an attorney with Craig Law Firm, and the town has retained me to assist in various matters regarding the planning board, this plan, and some other matters. First, want to clarify what is before you. Again, as Adrian said, about a month ago, you were given what was the 2021 plan. Okay, so that's the 2021 plan. And then that same 2021 plan was presented to the planning board for their review and recommendation. And the planning board adopted some recommendations that how the 2021 plan should be changed. And so I think that is in your packet. Maybe it has the blue ink that shows those are the changes that they are recommending you make. Okay? And there's an adopted, there is a plan in there that incorporates those blue words into it. So the one that you that got tonight is different than the 2021 plan that you saw about a month ago and that was presented to the planning board. The one that you're seeing tonight incorporates those recommendations. They are only recommendations. And so they have not changed the document. You're seeing what it would look like if those were incorporated. But that 2021 plan that you got a month ago is what is before this board. And if you want to incorporate the changes that are recommended by the planning board, those things in blue, which were incorporated into the additional document you got tonight, you will have to be specific about that. You could make a motion, and I've got some example motions for you. You could say, I move that we adopt the 2021 comprehensive plan with the recommended amendments that come from the planning board. Okay? That would be the document that you were given tonight, which incorporates those. But those recommendations from the planning board are separate. And what's before this board is what you got a month ago. If you want to adopt what is in the packet tonight, which incorporates the recommended changes from the planning board, you have to be specific about that. And those changes are, as Adrian pointed out, listed in blue, and one of the big changes is add the housing section back in, because in the one you got about a month ago, the housing section was not in there. The planning board, amongst other things, is recommending putting that housing section in. So I just wanted to be clear about what this board is looking at. It is the original plan. If you want to adopt those recommendations, you will have to do so specifically, and I can assist you in the proper language if you want, if that's what you want to do. You can adopt it without those recommended changes. You can adopt your own changes. You can make your own changes to it that are different from what the recommendation of the planning board. The planning board, that's just a recommendation. It is not binding on this governing board. Okay? Need to be clear about that. And again, I will be glad to clarify if any time along the way if you have any questions about that. I will like to specifically say that it is my legal opinion that the proposed 2021 comprehensive plan, the version you received a month ago, even without the recommended changes, meets the requirements of North Carolina General Statute Chapter 160D for a comprehensive plan. That is my legal opinion, that even without the recommended changes, it meets the legal requirements for a comprehensive plan. as I mentioned, and I will hand these up now, there's a 2-page document here. The first page shows some example motions if you wanted to make specific changes to, like, goal number 3, I want it to say or instead of and, or something like that. Those are example motions you could use to make those specific changes. The other, down at the bottom of that first page, you'll see a motion. So they're going to be possibly, not necessarily, but possibly 2 motions. Or there could be more than 2, but the first one is going to be about changes, and the second is going to be about adoption. So the first page there is about changes. And at the bottom, you see the line that says, for example, I move that the changes to the 2021 plan recommended by the planning board be adopted in their entirety. So that would say that, okay, I want to take those changes recommended by the planning board, incorporate them into that plan, and so that would be a motion. It would require a second, and then there would be discussion and a vote about that particular motion. And the alternative, you could say, well, I don't want to adopt those, but here's some changes I do want to make. And you could go through on a specific goal or whatever, and do those specific changes. And I've given you some examples on how to make those specific type of motions. Then, you can either say, well, I don't want to make any changes to the plan that was presented about a month ago, so there wouldn't be a motion. If there's no motion, then okay, the one that was presented about a month ago is the one that's before this. But if there are some changes, on the second page, you'll see some language about, about this would be an example motion for adopting the plan. And I use this as an example that incorporates some things that kind of need to touch on for specific reasons. That there was a properly noticed public hearing, that you received recommendations from the planning board, that you've considered the comprehensive plan and find it not in conflict with other plans. There are other plans like the Parks plan and other plans that we had that discussion, I believe, at one point in time before. There are other plans. It doesn't have to be, those don't have to be incorporated into this comprehensive plan, and this comprehensive plan doesn't have to incorporate them, but they just need to not be in conflict. And so you were given about a month ago the proposed 2021 plan and the other plans that you could look at, that the other formally adopted plans that were that are out there. And I believe that Adrian has previously addressed that as not being in conflict. And then you'll see that based on the advice of staff and council and your review, finding that the plan meets the requirements of the North Carolina General Statute 160D. That's what I just gave you my legal opinion regarding that it meets those requirements of 160D. And then you can say, you make a move that the commissioners, blah, 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 adopt the proposed comprehensive plan, and you could say, as amended by the motions passed tonight. That would be, like, for example, the motion to adopt the recommendations from the planning board. If there were no changes to the one that was presented about a month ago, then you would take that out. That's why that's highlighted. And again, I will try to work with you to make sure that I want to make sure that your motions do what you want them to do. So that's what Joe and I are here to help you do. So that is the thing. I will say this: a motion, a second, and discussion. You should have some discussion. Anybody got, yeah, I looked at it, and I think it looks good for the blah, 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 blah. I don't, whatever you say. Just have some discussion amongst yourselves about, okay, there's a motion, there's a second, there's discussion, then there's a vote. Do you have any questions? Well, you know, I always like to be the guy that comes in and is like, oh my God, listen to this attorney. I apologize for that, but I'm trying to get us on the right path.
Get it right.
Thank you. If you have any questions, I'm right here.
Okay, you've heard the presentation. We have a motion regarding that presentation.
I do. I move that the changes to the 2021 plan recommended by the planning board be adopted into its entirety. Having conducted a properly noticed public.
If I could, that was the first motion, that would be the motion in itself. The second one comes later.
Okay. I
Your
make that.
motion would be that the planning board recommendations be adopted in their entirety.
Okay.
Okay, you've heard the motion. Do we have a second?
I have a second.
Any discussion?
I've read it both ways, and I feel like the planning boards needs to be adopted into that as the motion.
Any further comments?
I appreciate the planning board, their work.
Yeah.
Okay. Walt?
Does your legal opinion extend to the adopted suggestions by the planning board? Because you only gave it for the original document, the way I heard it.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I am not going to respond to the public. I work for y'all. I understand the question. I will tell you that the changes that are proposed, the amendments or changes proposed by the planning board do not affect my legal opinion.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
All right, I have a second motion.
all right.
Having conducted a properly noticed public hearing regarding the proposed 2021 comprehensive plan, and having consulted with and received advice and recommendations from the planning board regarding the proposed 2021 comprehensive plan, and having considered the proposed 2021 comprehensive plan in relation to the other formally adopted plans of the town, finding it not in conflict with those plans, based on advice of staff and council and review, finding the proposed 2021 comprehensive plan to meet the requirements of North Carolina General Statute, Chapter 16D, for a comprehensive plan.
160D.
I'm sorry, 160D plan. Adopt this proposed 2021 comprehensive plan as amended and motion passed tonight as the town of Woodfin comprehensive plan.
Okay, you've heard that motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to departmental and administrators' reports. First one, police report, chief.
Okay, y'all bear with me a little bit tonight. Usually I try to keep these pretty short, and I'm going to do my best tonight, but I do have a few things to present tonight. I'm going to start with our monthly totals. We'll take a quick look at those. You can see our total calls for service are slightly up from this time last year. We've just anecdotally been noticing a little more activity. Traffic is starting to increase. Thankfully, and let me not jinx it here, our crash reports have remained lower than our trend for the last few years. You can see we only had 19 crashes that we investigated for August, which was the same number we had in 2020. So no significant increase there. Our citations are about the same. You will notice our felony drug charges have increased considerably, 12 charges this last month. That's because we have some officers now who've undergone some training and are getting out and finding folks who are bringing dangerous drugs into our community and trying to put a stop to it. So we really commend their efforts for that. Also, our persons arrested, almost double from what they were this time last year, 27 as opposed to 13. On our crime wave, we're still going to throw out there catalytic converter thefts are still occurring in the area. I believe we had a couple reported for August. And I know that the sheriff's office is, we've been working with them a little bit, trying to get some information back and forth. But unfortunately, there's just not a lot to go on at this time. And I also had heard something, I think it was last week or the week before, that the metals that are in catalytic converters are actually going up in price. So that means those catalytic converters are becoming a more valuable commodity. So again, we encourage folks, if you have a garage, use it. Keep your car parked in well-lighted areas where it's very visible, and do your best to try to thwart those thefts. Okay. Moving on, the next thing I have is actually part of what Eric's going to talk about later with our ARP funding coming up, the American Rescue Plan. One of the things that was presented in that is the funding for the police department updates to the policy manual. And I know folks may have a question of how that interacts with ARP funding. And there are actually some, I have some opinions from Lexipol, who's the provider we're looking to partner with, on how that works. And one of the big ones is accessibility. Obviously, if we get this project up and going, it takes our policy manual and puts it into an online format, which means people don't have to come here to interact with us. They can do that remotely. And the other part of that is training. We can conduct all that training remotely. We don't have to gather in a large room. So we're following protocols of social distancing. And then lastly, one of the most important ones is our policy updates will include policies for personal protective equipment, infectious disease, responding to critical incidents. So that becomes a training element as well for dealing with a COVID type or any type of pandemic situation. So those do align with the structure of the American Rescue Plan in providing funds for things that are used for COVID relief. That's how that fits in that. Does anyone have any questions about that? Okay, well, if none, then I'm going to move on to the next thing. And this is probably one of the more pressing and more high profile. On August 24th, we had a use of force incident which occurred at 834 Riverside Drive here in Woodfin. That incident was captured by a passerby and then published by the Citizen Times. The video, those of you who've seen it, has rather inflammatory comments that are made, and they also don't tell the whole story. After having seen that video and how it was presented, and also the article that went with that, we petitioned the Superior Court in Buncombe County for release of that body cam footage. Yesterday we had a hearing, and Superior Court Judge Steve Warren approved the petition to have that body cam footage released. We are currently in the process now of making that body cam footage available so the public can view it to see the whole story. And that's what we want to provide, is the whole story to everyone. Once folks watch what actually happened, they will see not only that our officers acted appropriately and acted using the least amount of legal force, but then went above and beyond and made sure that the suspect, the man they had a physical altercation with, was medically taken care of, and they showed empathy towards this individual. Okay? I think that, again, once the body cam footage is watched and you see the entire incident, you'll know that our officers acted beyond reproach. Does anyone have any questions about that incident that I could try to answer? All right. Well, again, thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make you guys aware of a couple of different things. First, the Planning and Zoning Board of Adjustment is going to meet on September 27th, this coming Monday, for a conditional use permit hearing. So I'll be here at Town Hall at 6:30. Also, we have the MS4 permit for stormwater runoff and have been working on getting in compliance with that. So we've been talking to a couple different organizations about helping us with that. So I want to let you know about that, and I think Eric's going to give you some more details because that's also part of the ARPA funding. So we're working with Anchor QEA and Land to Sky Regional Council. So Land to Sky is going to, they're in the process right now of finishing up the plan for formal adoption. So we hoping to bring that to you pretty soon. And that's to be in compliance with that MS4 permit. So they also offer services for implementation of the plan. So we are looking to enter into contract with them for that. So they'll be covering some of the best management practices that are required from the plan, things like volunteer opportunities for public involvement and creation of brochures for public education, training programs for staff for illicit discharge detection and elimination. So they'll be working on that side of things. And then we are talking to Anchor QEA and looking at entering to a contract with them for more of the technical review engineering side of things. So they're going to start with two tasks. One is to review the ordinance that we have to make sure it's what we need and what we're looking for, and provide a proposal for revisions to that ordinance that we'll be bringing back to you. And they're also going to create a runoff control program for construction and post-construction runoff. So they're going to create a guidance document for staff to use in enforcement of the ordinance for that runoff, and a document for developers and residents to use so they can kind of better understand what the requirements are of the ordinance and the permit. So I just want to make you aware about that. Like I said, I think Eric is going to provide some more details whenever he gives you his report.
Any questions or comments? Okay, Eric.
So I mentioned earlier, Sherry's not here tonight, so I'll be doing the finance report as well as administration and public works. Our audit, the field work is complete, so our auditors have been on site since August, in and out, and been working with our finance staff to close the books, to make any adjusting entries, to test the entries that we've made and the financials that will result in those financial statements. We've had early feedback has been very positive on that. I think by adding a finance director this year and a little more professional staff to supplement the woman that we have that was carrying the load by herself has been a really positive move for us. It did result in our being removed from the LGC's watch list as one manifestation of that move. So the auditors will be with us. We're planning to have them with us in October just to make presentation of the financial statements to you all. The contract between the auditor is with the auditor and the board, not town as an entity, and not town staff, but with the board. So that we'll expect her in October. Also, recently we switched from our credit card program to purchase cards. Purchase cards is a different type of program that's offered for governments. And so through our local bank, they were able to provide that to us. And there are benefits to that too. We can realize some cost savings, a little more efficient management of the cards. And so if someone is it needs a card that doesn't have one right now, it can be easily obtained, but the controls on those are also a little different and more and tighter for us as a government entity. One of the other things is we will also receive a rebate, a percentage of what we spend on that card, which is a difference from the credit card program that we had earlier. And so that was a significant improvement in finance. So the ARPA funding, I believe it was last month, you all approved a budget ordinance for the grant fund. And so this is just a reminder of what was in that. So this is simply a spending plan. It's not binding, in that we as staff are committed to sharing with you what we are anticipating in the next 30 to 60 days before we spend that and commit those funds, and then to get your guidance and then also your instruction as to whether or not to proceed. So this is our starting point. And what we anticipate for the next 30 to 60 days are the items that are on this list here. So Chief Dykes talked about the policy update. So that's contracting with an outfit who specializes in law enforcement policy updates, making that tool available as Chief described online, make it more accessible, and making sure that we've not got gaps in our policy and procedure. So we feel that's a necessary expenditure. We do believe that is an eligible expenditure under the ARPA funding eligibility criteria. We had estimated $35,000. The quote from the vendor is $33,900, which would leave us a little bit of money above what the budget, it will spend less than what the budget provides. And I'm working down to the bottom line, which is in red, because in the previous slide, the very last line, if you can see that, is $937,000 roughly for stormwater improvements that we know are coming for the town. So what we're doing is any savings that we realize in the other categories, we want to then drop down to that stormwater as a repository for those funds to pay for those necessary improvements. The second item is what Adrian just described, is the 2022 comprehensive plan. So you adopted tonight the 2021 comprehensive plan. That gives us sufficient time to do the type of community engagement that we know that is required for this type of a planning and guiding document, with no end date of July 1st. There's no rush to get that done. We need to be deliberate about that, and we know that's what you all have in mind also. The contractors, and so she mentioned J.M. Teague and Linda Giltz Consulting. The sum of those two contracts, the estimates are currently $55,000. That's $20,000 less than what we'd estimated for the spending plan. And then at Silverline Park, there's the cofferdam, which allows us to build the boat ramp there and also helps us shield the riverbank that's being stabilized with the boulder wall too. So all of those together, that's what we realize for that investment. But it is a change in the scope of that project. And so we initially, with the contractor's recommendation, we're looking at about a $280,000 expenditure for that cofferdam. The revised quote and estimate is $255,584, and that's a savings of about $24,000 and some change on that particular item. This is one that Commissioner Lunsford and the mayor and I have talked with our engineers and gotten some guidance from them, some input from them, and made that decision to move forward with that. So you'll see several big piles of rocks at Silverline Park, and those will be going in the river soon to give us some dry riverbed to build that boat ramp.
If you go by there, you'll see them.
Can't miss them. The final item is the stormwater management program, and there's 3 items under that. So we have hired a project manager. The project manager will spend part of his time overseeing the investment in stormwater improvements. And so again, as an engineer, that's going to be really helpful. He has some stormwater engineering experience in his background, so he'll come at this with much better information and knowledge than we could alone. And anyway, so we expect to spend that money, 25% of his salary and benefits, over 3 years. And so we are estimating at $28,000 for this year. So the rest of that, we're not going to let that fall down into the stormwater infrastructure, but reserve that for his salary in the future years. stormwater management plan that Adrian talked about. The stormwater management plan says, okay, here's our inventory, here's what our map, here's where our inventory is located, and now what are we going to do to address those issues, to inform the public, educate the public, involve the public in that. The stormwater management plan through Land of Sky, less than what we'd expected, is $5,500. By the time we meet next month, we will likely have entered into a contract unless you all instruct us otherwise. So that's $4,500 savings on that budget item. Stormwater ordinance enforcement. The current arrangement that we have is with Buncombe County, which provides these levels of services for disturbances of land over 1 acre. And what we think that our ordinance is going to end up being and stipulating is that under 1 acre, we also want to be looking at those developments and those development projects, whether it be 2, 3 houses, and then what's the runoff from that too. So we intend to step that up. So that's what that entails. We'll have more information on that next time we meet, probably. Putting Adrian on the spot. So that will get us a savings of nearly $19,000 for a total of about $69,000, which will add to the stormwater infrastructure, putting that total at over $1 million that we'll be setting aside for those investments. More information. So unless you have different instructions for us, staff, we'll proceed down this path. So moving on with financials, and so year-to-date, fiscal year 22, on the expenditure side, our budget is $6.23 million, and to date, we have incurred with contracts that we expect to pay out $983,970, which is 16% of our annual budget, which also is about where we are in the year. This is through August 31st. That's about 16% of the year. So then our remaining available budget is $5.2 million. On the revenue side, also the same budget, the $6.23 million. And the bulk of the towns and all municipalities' revenue comes in the form of property taxes, which comes in the middle of the year. So cash flow wise, we only currently have received about 5% of that budgeted amount. And so that's not a surprise, and nothing is of note there that we didn't expect. So we have a ways to go to collect all of our budget there. So that's finance. I'll keep on going. Newsworthy items then for admin and public works. We'll review in just a moment some website statistics. We went live with our new website in June, and we have some numbers to report to you on that. We just want to track that to see what's effective and what people are looking at. Employee incentives for vaccination. So this is a proposal to you all. So again, unless you tell us not to do this, we'll proceed on this too. We'll talk about that for vaccination. We'll review the contracts that we've entered into since the last time we met in August. And then as a preview, in the month of October, we've invited curbside management to come talk about recycling and rollout carts. We have in our ARPA funds plan some money for trash rollout carts. So we've been gathering information through a form of a survey. You all have several concerns about that too, so we want to anticipate what those concerns are and how we might meet those and overcome those. And then at the end of that discussion, then you all will tell us whether or not to proceed on that. So that's what we'll talk about next month. Street acceptance is the other big one that is looming out there. We have a development that has petitioned the town for acceptance of streets, and we're not quite ready tonight with a recommendation. Hope to have that for you next month, as well as we'll be working. We need to really revisit our street acceptance standards. We have some, and we want to revisit that with you as well. So website stats. I think these are the 2 months that we've measured so far, so July and August. So on our homepage, we've had between 3,000 and 4,000 hits. Those are not necessarily unique visitors. Those will be several repeats. I'm there every day, and so I'm 30 times in each of those months, as an example. And so we'll continue to refine this report to give us more information as to who's visiting and what particular pages they're looking at. the amount of time that they spend on that page, and are they really gathering information that's useful, that'll help us then to provide better information going forward, or to focus attention where it needs to be focused. So Ryan compiled this. He thought it was really interesting who the users were by country. So
Crazy.
that's the mind of Ryan. You're welcome to it.
That's crazy.
Yeah, unless they're hackers, but that's my mind now. So employee incentives for vaccinations. A lot of news about vaccinations. We're all aware of what's going on there. Up to this point, we have simply held to Buncombe County's emergency declaration for the mask requirement for indoors. We've not done anything but encouraged our employees to be vaccinated, providing time off if they needed it to take care of that. We do not know exactly the number of employees who have been vaccinated, but a straw poll tells us that we have a few that have not been, perfectly within their rights to do that. But what we're proposing is an incentive that if you provide proof of your vaccination and your status, then that the town will provide about $225 to $250 net of taxes, payroll taxes, incentive for those proofs of vaccination. So $100 for the proof of first vaccination, and $200 for the proof of the second vaccination to each employee. If it's a Johnson & Johnson, there's one proof, and that's the whole shebang there. The incentive that we're proposing and considering is retroactive to all employees beginning back in March 2021, actually, was the vaccination became available. So all employees will be eligible for this. We do believe this is an eligible use of the ARPA funds, should we decide and choose to go down that path and use those funds. What we're hoping is that we can implement this tomorrow, get this word out, and then begin to collect those proofs of vaccination. We'll have a better idea then if we are at 80%, 85%, where we are exactly, and then end that incentive on November the 15th. The other piece to that too is if you are sick or suspect that you've been exposed and you're taking time away from work, you use sick time. What we're suggesting is that for vaccinated employees, that we use the ARPA funds to pay for those folks who've been vaccinated, but still either are experiencing symptoms and have not yet been tested, so there's that period, or those who have tested positive for up to 10 days since the date of their first symptom. So that's what we're proposing, and that's what we would like to implement this week. And again, as a reminder, everyone's required inside to don a mask. Okay, so I'll proceed then unless you tell me not to.
Go ahead.
So the contract since the last time we met, PFA Architects. PFA Architects they're the design team that did the train platform and the park pavilion, the shelter at Silverline Park. We've engaged them now to do design and function, consider the design and function for the public building at Silverline Park. So we know we want to utilize that in some way. And so there's been some feedback and some guidance given by the subcommittee of the board. And so working with PFA Architects then to bring that back to you for your consideration and for some discussion. That amount is $18,700. We've entered into contract with TSA Choice, who also partners with Mitel on a new phone system. And so there's two parts of this, is a hardware lease as well as an annual maintenance agreement. Our phone system right now is, how many years old is it, Chief?
It's old.
And it doesn't work really well. The advantage now with this one is you can forward it to a mobile phone, so you're not really missing a call. You can retrieve it from home in your voicemail, your emails. So it gives us a lot more functionality and gets us a little more into the 21st century with our phones. We were paying about $1,700 a year in maintenance on our old system. We own the equipment. And so it's a net increase of about $7,000 for that contract. The final one is for B&H Landscapes. So we've contracted them for snow removal. They have some smaller trucks that they can maneuver in different areas that we might not otherwise be able to get to, like Sunny Ridge and some other areas where we're down a truck this year because we're replacing some, but they're on order as with many things. They're on back order and have been for several months. So we wanted to make sure that we had that base covered this winter. So those are the contracts. Now move forward to the Greenway and Blueway. And so this is the home stretch. So the general project update, I mentioned earlier, we have a project manager coming on board next week, so we'll be glad to see him. Our advisory committee is focused on several things, but I just noted a couple of them here. So there is a communications subcommittee of the advisory committee, and they've been working with what the chairman of their committee last month presented as a partnership with AB Tech and one of their students who's experienced with branding and logo design. So she's met with the mayor, myself, and a few others on the advisory committee to get a jump start on that. So they're working closely on that part of that project, the project, I'm reading the next bullet. The project manager press release, and so we've also asked them to help us with the press release for that. So that will go out before the end of this week. And the work plan for that project manager. So reviewing, put together an initial work plan, so soliciting feedback from that, from one of the subcommittees of that advisory committee on the work plan for our project manager. So, a lot of work and a lot of enthusiasm among that committee, and they are really they're gangbusters. Riverlink staff transition to the new executive director. Her name is Lisa Raleigh, and I believe she starts this week. And so she's on board, and she brings with her a depth of experience in fundraising, and that in particular is what we really need to, and what we're leaning on Riverlink to bring. And so she has, I think she will jumpstart that and get us to a place where we are going to be in good shape on the fundraising front and set some targets. She'll be coming to talk with you all. We'll bring her in, introduce her to you all as well in the next couple of months. There were a couple of other staffing decisions at Riverlink. Those are on hold until Lisa gets on board and gets settled. Silverline Park, we talked about the decision on the cofferdam, so we can not spend any more time on that. Had a couple of change orders in the last month. We initially entered into contract with Equinox for construction administration of $20,775. We're running close on that, and the park still has a ways to go. So we're increasing this just as a precaution in case we run over the initial contract amount. I do think that cost will be mitigated by the fact of having a project manager on board. And so I think we will not get there to that limit and that cap. There was an additional cost for one of the subcontractors for permitting, Stantec Engineering, and some work that they did to get us moving forward on the Riverbank work. And so that cost has been incurred, so we have a change order for that. Pending decisions, we are expecting a change order from the general contractor for the pirate ship design. So that's materials costs as well as what's going to be required to build it the way that we've now approved that to move forward. Park signage, so again, we're taking a pause on park signage until we get the logo decisions made. So that is dependent on this semester at AB Tech and that student's work. Very optimistic that we'll get that completed soon and have some park signs up by the time we open the park in the spring. The public building design is the other outstanding item there. Riverside Park and the Whitewater Wave. There was an on-site design team visit, and so our design team is Equinox locally, and then S2O, Scott Shipley, and crew. They were in town on August the 18th, on-site, reviewing just what to expect there, where they are. Walt was there asking questions, and he may have some answers if you have some questions for him on the particulars of that piece of it. I did join them, and Walt was also there at the rock quarry visit. So actually beginning to select rocks that will go into the Whitewater Wave, into the riverbed, as well as into the viewing area on the park at Riverside Park. Storm drain and riverbank stabilization. So this is another proposed use of the ARPA funds, and so I put it in here just to, as a reminder, so that would be another offset to the funding gap that we'll talk about in just a moment. So that's just the plan, and you'll see that I have it in the budget, but we haven't made a final decision on that. That will come back to you. We have a Clean Water Fund grant that the cap on that is $500,000. with a match for Riverside Park. And so we have $1 million of expenditures that are eligible for this this particular grant. And so we've been working with our grant writer, that's ready to go. And so we'll send that off next week and apply for that grant. We've had some feedback from one of the reviewers which says it looks pretty favorable. So we'll see where that one goes. Ongoing discussions, lots of talk around boat ramp at Riverside Park among the advisory committee, members of the community. So that's still ongoing. Parking and parking sufficiency, parking peak demand versus normal average day demand. So those are some considerations and a lot of discussion ongoing around parking. And then the final item that I've noted here that the advisory committee has brought to our attention too, we need to be mindful of is outfitter relationships. I meant to say relationships there. So anticipating what that might look like and what the arrangements will need to be there. So we'll be spending time on that in the near future. That is on Luke's work plan. Greenways, we learned last month that there's potential use of the ARPA funds through Buncombe County. So that's competitive, and so we'll see if we make the cut there for that. Staff at the county did make a proposal to the county commission. There's some staffing changes at Buncombe County. So Carla Fernari has tendered her resignation. She's their lead project manager for the Greenways, but Peyton O'Connor is still on board at the county. So I don't think we'll lose any steps there, momentum, but we'll miss Carla. The Beaver Dam Creek design, the scope of work is nearing completion. That's eventually we'll be blending the two legs of the Greenway together into one project. This is simply getting the design all synced up. So moving forward on the design for Beaver Dam Creek. Nothing materially changing for the budget here. Bottom line, the funding gap is about $3.5 million currently. I have plugged in the ARPA funding where it fits. And that's about the only change since the last time we met. And that's all.
Any questions for Eric? Okay, thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other items, new business to come before the board tonight? If not, I believe we need to have a closed session. Yes, ma'am?
I have the AC Woodfin report, so
Just
I
take it.
can make that out of order.
Okay.
The first time on the agenda. I'm glad to see you.
Yeah, no. Or I'm gonna get from work, but, yeah, traffic. So I just want to say, we are down again this month, but as I mentioned last month, my thought was to start comparing our sales to 2019 instead of 2021. So during the month of August last year, the Weaverville store was closed because of an outbreak, and the Asheville store on Merriman Avenue had greatly reduced their hours. So we benefited greatly from those two things happening. So COVID really did actually help our bottom line a lot, especially while Weaverville was closed and Merriman had their greatly reduced hours. We do think that, or Tammy, the manager, does think we may have retained some of those customers, like maybe they like shopping in Woodfin better, it's not as busy as Merriman Avenue, or so we do think, and getting in and out where the Weaverville store is kind of tricky because there's Lowe's and there's Walmart super busy. So we're hoping that we've made that experience nice for them, and we may keep some of those. Right now, we are probably midway into our construction of our new storage facility. You've probably seen that going on. That has impacted things somewhat right now because it has also limited our parking. So we're hoping that as that wraps up, we will, I've heard that some of the people are nervous to come into the parking lot because it's hard to turn around to get out. You have to back out, which can be scary. And so we're hoping that when that kind of, this machinery and equipment gets out, we'll regain some of our parking and that won't be so much of an issue. So I have a few copies of this. So our sales for the month of August were $211,000 compared to $279,000 in August of 20. But Don Millsaps, one of our board members, has started making a chart for us of sales compared to the last 3 years. So as per his chart that he made, We are down compared to a year ago, but we are up for the last 2 and 3 years. August sales of 211,000, we're down 24% versus last year, but are up 28% over 2 years ago and 38% over 3 years ago. So we're not really concerned, but I have a couple of these if you guys want more. So we're not concerned, but oh my God, computer. So anyway, that's pretty much it. That's what we have. I will say that the new space is much bigger than what Tammy had expected. We've all seen it, and we're hoping that if they have gotten some more of the work done by next month, that we can have our board meeting there. We've been meeting virtually. You all were nice enough, generous enough to extend your conference room. So if that is not far enough along, we would like to try to meet here. We're very eager to actually all be in the same room together, as we've not had a live board meeting, I don't know, for 19 months now. So it'd be nice to all just be in the same room again. So I think the board members have all been going by fairly regularly just to check on Tammy and the staff and see how they're doing. But that's my report. Anybody have any questions?
Any questions?
Boardroom's still reserved for you if you do need it. So
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, if we're not.
I complete your reservation.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you. No, we don't know what we'll have in construction, so if it's not ready to go, we'll definitely take you up on it for next month. So,
Okay, thank you, good report.
yeah, thank you.
Okay, any other items to come before the board? If not, I believe we need to go into closed session.
So move.
Have a motion to adjourn this meeting and go in closed session. Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. You're adjourned from this.